bodyguards present that we can see, no protection, it seems. My next guest once provided Thompson with security in the 2000s as he actually was rising through the ranks at United Healthcare. Philip Klein is the CEO of Klein Investigations, and he joins me now. Philip, thank you for joining. When you heard about Brian Thompson walking early in the morning, alone, no security, was that odd to you?
It was baffling, to be honest with you. You get somebody in the number one healthcare organization in the United States of America who is a corporate executive, a high-ranking one, as a matter of fact, just sitting on the board of directors, and he has no protection around him. That is just baffling. I don't understand it. We still don't understand it. It could have been one of two things. According to the teams that we've listened to today, and of course the news media giving us information. One, it could have been a personal choice. He may have not liked living in the bubble, and that's what we call somebody that is in the middle that we are protecting. It's called the bubble. We're around him. Even when he goes to the restroom, we're still right outside the door, that sort of thing. Or United Healthcare chose not to provide security for him. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to speculate on it, but it is highly unusual for the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation not to have people around him. It's just, again, it's baffling.
This takes me back to the video, and it was a viral video back in the day. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it, where a guy walked up to and he was speaking to Jeff Bezos, which you never ever see any video of a guy walking up and speaking to Jeff Bezos. And he had security around him that just seemed like normal guys, and the guy seemed like that he had like a hand that was out or whatever, but his hand seemed fake. But in reality, if you actually looked at the video, you could see that the guy actually had his hand probably on a weapon that was inside of his jacket and all of that. And Jeff Bezos was just walking around trying to seem normal, while at the same time his security, and this was back when he was actually the CEO of Amazon and not the chairman, and his security was around him and they was very aware of what was going on. I also seen another video previously of Bill Gates walking through Times Square in New York and stuff. And if you look, you could see security in certain places and things like that. And even on a much, much, much smaller level. I will tell you that as a person that has security on certain things, like when I go out of town, or when I go to do shows at certain places and stuff, like I have my own separate security, which is completely separate from whatever the security that's at the event. Like I have people that's with me 100% of the time. They stay at my hotel. They don't stay in my hotel room, but at my hotel in a room that's literally adjacent to mine, and all of that. It does start to get kind of like claustrophobic operating in a bubble, because and at first it was weird because they would go with me and stand outside of the bathroom and all of this other type of stuff. And it was like, hey man, I'm good. Like, I'm from Detroit, I'm good or whatever, but that's just the protocol for how they want to make sure that, you're responsible. So when this guy at an exponentially bigger level that's running the biggest healthcare company, I'm on a microscopic level, right? This guy is running a probably trillion-dollar corporation, at least multi-hundred-billion-dollar corporation, and he's a CEO of a subgroup of United Healthcare Group, and he's walking around Manhattan with no security whatsoever at 6:45 in the morning. And I'm supposed to believe, as a person that is observing this, I'm supposed to believe that this was just a random attack. You cannot pay me enough money to believe that somebody is engraving something on the shell casings for us to find so that they can then have this conversation and talk about change within the healthcare industry. Bull crap. All of that stuff is planted. And again, the more information that comes out, and this is just my personal opinion, the more information that comes out, the more that I believe that this was more of a setup than ever before. And so everybody looks suspicious to me. I look at everything, and I'm not saying that it's anybody's, you know, key. But then they saying the Department of Justice was investigating the wife, they was living apart and all of this stuff. Man, I'm not going for that.
That might be so counterintuitive to people to think that, security, many people think are relegated
Crazy.
maybe to high profile athletes or entertainers or people in Hollywood. But the idea that there would be some vulnerability for people in such high profile positions, I think is becoming quite apparent to people, at least this evening. And when you look at that video, the hour of the day, the landscape of Manhattan, just how vulnerable was he to any attack?
Any attack. It could have been a person that had him targeted. It could have been just a street
random,
vendor.
yep.
You just never know. I thought Mary Ellen kicked it out of the park. I love Mary Ellen. Every time she's on television, I'm intrigued by her. But one thing I haven't heard from a lot of people are two things. Number one, when the event happened. The event happened at 6:30 in the morning. A lot of people say, well, between 6:30 and 7. A lot of people say, well, why is that important? Well, that's shift change for the New York Police Department. So there's not a lot of street officers on the street at that point in time. Second, I believe, just from what I've listened to from news reports and Intelnet reports, I believe that this man had his schedule. I think this man knew his movements.
Yep.
And I think he posted up 5-10 minutes before he walked out of that other hotel and walked around the corner and was in front of the Hilton. I think that's important. And the last thing that I heard your other guests talk about is the gun and the positioning of the gun and how the gun jammed. He did have a suppressor. He did have a baffler on that gun from what we've seen in the videos that have been supplied to all of us out here in the field. And the gun jammed because of the recoil of the action on it and the baffler. And not only that, but the silencer, let's just call it what it is, a silencer. And it did not set off any of the monitors in the city area that listen for gunshots that would have put police.
It's called Shot Spotter. It's the thing that Brandon Johnson over in Chicago removed that gives an alert and automatically pings over to the technicians, which then pings over to the police department to let you know that there's something that was happening, because Shot Spotter is something that New York City and both at some point Chicago was using. But again, Brandon Johnson removed Shot Spotter from Chicago, which is the dumbest move ever. But it is. And these are important parts and details that are now coming out. And he said it didn't set off any of the Shot Spotter. Why? Because there was a suppressor on it. 100% right.
In the area immediately.
Too many things lined up.
So it just seems like the perfect storm.
Well, Philip, we don't have much time, sadly, but let me ask you, how many bodyguards should have been around him? What would that detail have looked like to secure his safety?
At least 2 or 3.
If he or his company had hired our firm, we would have had 10 agents around him at the minimum.
10.
Really?
And that would have been an advanced team in front of the hotel, but we would have never moved him like that. We would have moved him out of his hotel through the back entrance, put him in a small motorcade, brought him over to the back entrance of the other hotel. That's how we operate.
You're saying other CEOs would have that, Philip? You're saying CEOs of companies, that would be something like a government official. They would have that level of detail.
Yep, because he's fixing to give a speech in front of stockholders that are not being monitored and are not being checked. So I would make sure that on my team, if I was the detail leader, I would make sure that we would have had the room secure, number one, but number two, we would have brought him through a back entrance.
So those 10 detail agents are not just people that's hovering around him like an entourage. Because you know how rappers and entertainers do. They just get their homeboys to just be up there with them. Those 10 agents are people that's out proactively understanding his schedule and securing the places that he would go to make sure that it was safe prior to him arriving. Yeah, man, it's too much of the perfect storm to just be a coincidence. I'm not going for it. I'm curious as to what y'all think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. Get your tickets to come and kick it with me in person in Detroit. I love you. I appreciate you. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. I'm out.